Hi guys, this is Kirk from Cabinetry Creations, and I'm looking pretty good in my blue and white hat today, by the way. I just wanted to let you know. It's a little bit retro look, I like it. Anyhow, in this video we're going to talk about how to make a kitchen budget, or a budget for remodeling, but specifically related to kitchen, go a long way. And I want to be clear, this is not a video about how we sort of take things out. It's a video about how do we add the details in. So how do we save money on the big ticket items like cabinetry, right? How do we save money there to get these details in? And the thing we always tell people is, so you got plywood cabinetry. There's a pretty steep premium to get plywood cabinetry. And in the morning, when you come out and your kitchen's done and it's been 2-3 months, nobody walks out and looks at their cabinetry and goes, man, that plywood looking good. You don't even know it's plywood. I could do particle board or plywood, you wouldn't notice the difference. What people do notice when they come out into their kitchen in the morning to drink their coffee is, I love that upgraded faucet. I love that backsplash tile. I love the brackets we put under the floating shelves. And I could go on and on about the details that are essentially unique to your kitchen. So again, the point of this video isn't to say, well, don't do this and don't do that. It's, hey, how do we save money on the big ticket items that are part of every kitchen remodel so we can get those beautiful details that really make your kitchen yours and unique and beautiful and something that you wake up and go, oh, I want to go sit in my kitchen. That's the hope. That's the goal, right? You're remodeling your kitchen so it's a space that you love. It's more functional. Your family's there. You feel good about it, right? And that's the hope. So that's the point of the video. I don't want to belabor that. When we think about sort of saving, or maximizing the budget or saving money in certain areas, if you hear me using numbers throughout this video, in my brain, I'm thinking about like a $40,000 or $50,000 kitchen remodel. So any numbers you hear me use as far as savings, it's going to be something like from a $40,000 or $50,000 kitchen remodel perspective. So first and foremost, and this is the topic that certainly people have disagreement on, but there's different levels of cabinetry and there's different quality of cabinetry. And one of the biggest expenses related to cabinetry is plywood versus essentially non-plywood. I'm just going to use the term particle board. Particle board cabinetry is substantially less money than plywood. So plywood is this upgrade and it is more structurally sound. I don't want to argue with anybody about that. It is definitely more structurally sound, and I always say, if you intend to throw a bowling ball at your cabinetry, I don't know, I guess plywood cabinetry would be better than particle board. But for all practical purposes, plywood in a kitchen environment, under most circumstances, does just fine. And I'm telling you, you have to do particle board. We sell, the bulk of what we sell is plywood cabinetry because we don't really try and talk people out of it. But if you watch these videos, we would tell you particle board is going to get you in the end probably the same outcome, and you're going to save quite a bit of money. And on a project, $40,000, $50,000 kitchen remodel, you can save yourself $1,000, $2,000 from not using plywood and keeping your cabinetry at particle board. Well, now that buys the faucet and the upgraded hood and whatever other beautiful detail that you want if we're really trying to stay within that budget. Another way is use less painted cabinets. So painted cabinets have a 10 to 20% premium over stained cabinets. That's essentially a universal rule across all cabinet manufacturers. If you're willing to use some stained cabinetry, and maybe it's just on the island, maybe it's just on the perimeter, maybe it's in the butler's pantry, whatever it might be, you're gonna save quite a bit of money there as well. And I want to make a point about stained versus painted cabinetry. From a durability standpoint, and everyone gets hung up on particle board versus plywood, but the reality is stained cabinetry is probably more durable than painted cabinetry. If you get a ding or a nick or a scratch or a gouge out of painted cabinetry, it can be tricky to make that look good. It's less tricky with stained cabinetry. So if we're worried about long-term durability, stained is probably a little bit better. So another large portion of a kitchen remodel is countertops. And there's lots of ways to save money on countertops. Split your island and your perimeter. So if you're in love with some particular countertop material that's pricey, just do it on the island. Use something cheaper on the perimeter. Use remnants. Remnants are wonderful to save money. Use granite or something that's not quartz. Quartz is, I don't want to say expensive right now because it's not necessarily expensive, but there are multiple materials that are cheaper, such as granite, because it's fallen out of favor. In our industry, the expensive stuff is the popular stuff. That's just the way it works. Doesn't necessarily mean it's more rare. It doesn't necessarily mean it's harder to manufacture. If it's popular, it's going to be more expensive.
The Louis Vuitton and Gucci.
It is essentially Louis Vuitton and Gucci. Whatever is popular, whatever designers have decided is popular and looks good today is going to be the most expensive. That's the way our industry works, whether we like it or not. 10 years ago, you could get rift cut white. You couldn't even get rift cut white oak because no one wanted it. But if you could, it wasn't that expensive. And at this point, as I was shooting this video, rift cut white oak is very popular. And oh, by the way, it's now a premium. It's expensive. It's beautiful, but it's expensive. 10 years ago, it wasn't wanted, so it wasn't expensive.
Supply and demand.
There's a supply and demand. I don't even know if it's supply and demand. No, it's not supply and demand. It's a
manufactured supply and demand.
It is, sure, maybe a little bit of a manufactured supply and demand, yes. Another way to save money, and it can often be a meaningful chunk of money, is don't change the floor plan or the footprint. The second you start moving cabinetry or reducing cabinetry in a spot, you can sometimes push yourself into actually needing flooring. You can push yourself into other mechanical type issues that we'll talk about a little bit later in the video. But you start to change floor plan, you start to change footprint of cabinetry, and you can actually drive the cost of a project quite a bit. If you leave it where it is, a lot of times we can fit what is new cabinetry right where the existing cabinetry was, and you can keep your flooring. And that saves a ton of money. Flooring is pretty expensive now. People used to look at flooring and go, "Oh, it's so cheap." It's actually not that cheap. And we'll talk a minute about flooring. But if you could get away with outdoing flooring by keeping the same floor plan and footprint, that saves a ton of money. I will urge everybody to be reasonable on appliances. You can go bananas on appliances. And now here's the deal: if you want to save money on that cabinetry because you want what is a decorative luxury stove. So, right, you can't really see it, but in this kitchen is essentially a decorative luxury stove. You could save some money on the cabinetry to upgrade to that stove. With that said, most people don't want decorative luxury stoves, but don't go crazy on the appliances. There's all this rage to get a large oven range. No one uses it. But they're expensive. And there's a pretty big premium to get those. Just use your standard 30-inch range. They have beautiful standard 30-inch ranges. Save yourself a few, often several $1,000s, and put that into something that it really means something to you. Now, if you cook and you use 6 burners, go ahead. But family of 15, have at it. But for most people in most situations, the 30-inch range does just fine. So don't go crazy on the appliances. Flooring, LVT, LVP. That stuff looks great now. It's very cost effective. It's very durable. If there ever is a problem, it's easy to replace. You can buy extra boxes of it and store it, and it stores well, and you can keep it if there ever is a problem. We love LVT, LVP as a flooring option in kitchens and in a lot of spaces, but kitchens, it works really, really well. Use a contractor with experience. And I know that's sort of, right, it's sort of self-serving to say because, we focus on kitchens. With that said, we see this time and time again. People call us and they go, "Oh my gosh, I hired so-and-so. I got to kick them out. They're so bad. They've clearly never done a kitchen before." And we go, "Well, why'd you choose them?" And they go, "Because they were cheap." They had the right pitch. And in the end, what we often realize is most installers aren't trying to rip you off. They often lack experience. And the way you get experience is by learning on someone's home. With that said, we have the experience, so we don't have to learn on your home. But it can get very, very costly choosing the installer that doesn't have experience. Choose someone that's got experience. Just, and you want to vet them. What projects have you done? Call on, the projects that they've done. They should be able to give you referrals. You want them to have done 15, 20 kitchens. There's a learning curve to this. And without experience, it often ends up. And sometimes the installer doesn't charge you more. They just take an extra 4 weeks, which has a cost to it as well. So use an installer with experience. Don't move appliances or mechanicals. If you move appliances and mechanicals, the labor cost goes up, the material cost goes up, and those become very, very expensive. And you can often keep appliances where they're at and essentially adjust the footprint or how the cabinetry is laid out. Save some money by not moving where the stove is, not moving where the refrigerator is, but accomplishing things through changing footprint of the cabinetry. That's a way to save money. With that said, the other way, and if you just do one, where you just move appliances, okay, fine. You can sometimes work out moving appliances and not have to do a ton of mechanicals. But if you want to move appliances and redo the footprint, it's going to cost. Right? That's a double whammy of essentially extra cost. So, and what do we mean by moving mechanicals or appliances? So if you want to move your oven, generally speaking, it's going to be 220 or it's going to be gas. Those lines, whether it's electrical or gas, are going to have to be moved. And on a gas range, sometimes you have to add an electrical outlet to operate the clock and such. So, you start to move those mechanicals. If you want to move your fridge, okay, you got to move the water line. If you want to move the dishwasher, you got to move water lines and sometimes electrical. So you start to move these mechanicals and it can get pretty costly. Obviously, anytime you move walls, it's going to cost. But something that gets lost a lot of times, people want to move walls so they have a bigger space. Well, when you move a wall to get a bigger space, you have more cabinetry, a bigger island, more labor, more countertop. So it's not just move the wall. Moving the wall is, from a labor perspective, often pretty easy, assuming it's not load bearing. What often gets lost in the thought process is all of the extra materials and all the extra labor needed. So you go, yeah, it's $1,000 to move the wall.
We
So
actually
then,
have a YouTube video that goes into more detail.
we
about
do have a
this,
YouTube
right?
video that goes into more detail about this. But to add the rest of the materials and the labor, you're often talking $5,000 plus. Plus the removal of the wall and fixing, and you got to do flooring. 98% of the time you got to do flooring when you move a wall. So staying away from moving walls is a huge way to save money. And if you, like you said, and I don't want to overdo this point, but this is what matters to people when the kitchen's done 3 months later. You don't move that wall, but you buy more details in the space you do have. People love that. And moving a wall and having a very bland block kitchen because you think it's going to be grand and beautiful, it often doesn't hit. Now, if you want to move the wall, spend the money, well, it's beautiful, obviously. But if you're going to move that wall and then don't get any of the details, you look at your kitchen and you feel a little bit of buyer's remorse because you didn't get that feeling that everyone's looking for when they get a new kitchen. So, to recap, cabinetry. Be willing to use particle board. I know that's not everybody's favorite thought, and you don't have to. We don't make anybody do it, but you can definitely save some money there. Countertops, use remnants. Don't be afraid to use granite. Appliances, be reasonable. Don't overdo it on the appliances. Don't change your floor plan. Leave the cabinetry footprint the same. Think about LVT flooring, LVP flooring. Save money on the contractor by hiring somebody with experience, please. Don't move appliances, mechanicals. If you can keep that refrigerator where it is, and you can keep that stove where it is, and you can keep the sink where it is, you're going to save a ton of money. Anyhow, I hope this video was helpful. If there's anything we can do for you, don't be afraid to reach out. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a good one.